Everyone, and welcome to the first of the Readalong Most Victorian review videos. And the very first video that we have done is Silas Marner by George Eliot. And I love the longer version of the name is Silas Marner, the Weaver of Readalong. This is really different to me. It felt really different from George Eliot's books that I have read. I've read Middlemarch, Daniel Deronda, and Adam Bede. And you should join us in January. We are reading Romola. So I've only read about 70 pages of Romola, and it is a really long one. And I shouldn't have been surprised, though, but I was going to say that this seemed a much smaller, intimate story than George Eliot's other novels. And because it is rather short, that makes sense. It's definitely on a less grand scale. And unfortunately, I really did struggle with this for about half of the book. And I just really, I don't know what it was, something about the really different style. And I think a fair number of the characters I just didn't feel quite as interested in. And I kind of was waiting to become invested. And so I think maybe in George Eliot's other books, she jumps around from lots of different characters. And so, you know, in Daniel Deronda, if there's one character you're not as interested in, you can kind of hang tight while those characters are on the scene. And then you will become more interested. You can have other characters that you might feel more intrigued by. And I also think same thing for Middlemarch and Adam Bede. So I didn't really feel that drawn to Silas at first. He's kind of this, you don't know much about him at first. You just know that he is framed for stealing some money. In the beginning, he has this knife. I think it's a pocket knife. Did they have pocket knives in the Victorian era? Well, it is his knife, and it has been stolen from him, and then along with some gold that's stolen, and the knife is left where it's been stolen. So I think he's pretty much framed. And it's a very, very upsetting situation because he did not do it. He's innocent of this, and it's really just heartbreaking to see that. But even with all that happening, I just didn't find myself really, immersed in the story. I was kind of like riding the waves, but it did have George Eliot's beautiful, beautiful writing throughout that. So that definitely carried me through. But I think I did listen to this in audiobook, and I think maybe I did it a disservice. I think maybe the accents that the guy was doing for the local, like, Midlands type England accent, I wasn't a huge fan of, and it kind of maybe detracted from the story for me. So I'm glad actually Romola I can't access via audiobook. And there's like one audiobook reader, and I didn't like how they read it. And so I just decided I would sit down and I would read physical copy. And so I think possibly George Eliot might be one of those authors that the first time you're reading a book, you might enjoy it more doing the physical reading of it. So that's my theory also as to a reason maybe I didn't enjoy this quite as much as her other books that I have enjoyed. But one passage, just her descriptions of settings, I love. And she's talking about the village of Readalong. It says, "In Readalong was a village where many of the old echoes lingered, undrowned by new voices. Not that it was one of those barren parishes lying on the outskirts of civilization, inhabited by meager sheep and thinly scattered shepherds. On the contrary, it lay in the rich central plain of what we are pleased to call Merry England, and held farms which, speaking from a spiritual point of view, paid highly desirable tithes. But it was nestled in a snug, well-wooded hollow, quite an hour's journey on horseback from any turnpike, where it was never reached by the vibrations of the coach horn or of public opinion. It was an important-looking village, with a fine old church and large churchyard in the heart of it, and 2 or 3 large brick and stone homesteads, with well-walled orchards and ornamental weathercocks standing close upon the road and lifting more imposing fronts than the rectory, which peeped from among the trees on the other side of the churchyard. A village which showed at once the summits of its social life and told the practiced eye that there was no great park and manor house in the vicinity, but that there were several chiefs in Readalong who could farm quite badly at their ease, drawing enough money from their bad farming in those war times to live in a rollicking fashion and keep a jolly Christmas, Whitsun, and Eastertide." She really does have such a gift for giving you these really up close and personal portrayals of where the setting is. She really has a sense of place in her books, and she wants to let you have that same sense of place. So I will now read, I did get 2 comments in response to this, 2 lovely ladies who joined in the read along. And so the first comment I want to read, because it is very relevant to how I felt about the book, is from Christy at Christy Lewis Reviews Books Worth Your Time, which I will link her channel down below. It is a wonderful channel. I found Christy through a Victober TBR, and we've just been having a lot of fun chatting back and forth in the comments. And she reads really interesting books and has really insightful, thought-provoking things to say about said books. So Christy says, I loved the book the moment Eppie toddled into Marner's hut. Although the beginning was a little slow, the characterizations and tension still drew me in until Eppie stole my heart. I also love that there are consequences for Godfrey's choices. The humor of the peasantry added considerable charm to the setting and atmosphere. Overall, a total delight. I listened to some of it on audiobook and dipped into the book at night. It was a wonderful experience because I could hear the accents on audiobook, but also pick out fun quotes when reading the physical copy. And so that is a really interesting thing. Christy was saying she liked the accents. And so when I talk about different audiobooks, it is such a unique experience, listening experience for you. I could really not like one that you love, vice versa. And so it was neat to hear Christy really enjoyed hearing the different accents, and that was special to her. But I liked, that's a neat strategy to kind of go back and forth between audiobook and physical copy. And I think I do a lot of reading a ton of books at a time. And so I don't do kind of just reading one book and getting it, being totally immersed. And so listening to the audiobook when I can't read a physical book and then just sitting down with a physical book of that. I think that would be a really fun way to get through a book. But yes, and picking out the fun quotes when reading the physical copy. There are just so many noteworthy things that George Eliot puts in here. So yeah, I think I am a little sad, talking about this and feeling like it felt a little rushed. Whereas George Eliot, I think, is an author not to be rushed. But I do totally agree with Christy saying that she loved the book the moment Eppie toddled into Marner's hut, and that is a big changing point in the story. Silas Marner, he's had this gold stolen from him, and it's really built up this resentment in him, and just thinking like, oh, my life, what would my life have been like if I hadn't had that gold stolen? And just these years and years of resentment building up. And then one night, this woman is walking into town. She's going to find her husband, who is ashamed of her. He is ashamed that she is his wife, because of the kind of class that she comes from. It's such a sobering kind of plot line that he's ashamed of his own wife. And she falls asleep in the snow holding her baby, and she dies there in the snow. And so then this man, who I just forgot his name, and Christy said it, Godfrey, he gets off the hook. He's like, great, I didn't like this wife, and so now she's died, and I don't even have to take care of this kid. Because as soon as Eppie walks into Silas Marner's house, he is just utterly enchanted. And it's really, really sweet, because on the same night, he has been over the years saving up gold, and so he has a new store of gold. And on the same night, that new store of gold he's now stolen from 2 times, but Eppie with the golden hair walks in, and he says that he thinks like his gold coins were exchanged for this little golden haired child. And he doesn't know her name. We never know what her first name was. I don't think we do. That's interesting, because at the end you would think we would find out, but we don't know it. And he decides to name her Hepzibah after his mother and call her Eppie for short, which I thought Eppie was such a sweet nickname. It's like really familiar sounding, and just I loved the sound of it. I thought it was very, very sweet. So from then on, I was really invested in the story. I love seeing this paternal aspect of Silas that you don't get to see before. You kind of see him before this as just a man wronged, and that's the only aspect you see of him, and building up all of this bitterness over the years, and not receiving justice. And so I totally agree with Christy too. She says that there are consequences for Godfrey's choices, and the consequences that Godfrey has is that, you know, he opted out of having this daughter. He decided, I don't want her, because he thought it would threaten his chances having a real and lasting relationship with Nancy, the woman he's in love with, that he is engaged to. And so he opts out of it. And then later on, he and Nancy are not able to have children of their own. This actually does make me want to recommend somebody kind of getting a taste of their own medicine. That's what I really think that this phrase, this circumstance in this book makes me think of. That phrase is a book by P.D. James called A Certain Justice. It's in her Adam Dalgliesh mystery series, and there's something where someone gets like the exact consequences that they deserve. Just very like chillingly fitting consequences. And so I was really shocked when Nancy and Godfrey just walk over and expect Eppie to go and live with them, not realizing, you know, some things you can't buy with money. You can't buy a lifetime of taking care of someone. And so Silas Marner is the only father she's ever known, and it has a really sweet ending. So I think maybe I'm saying, you know, regretting that I listened to the audiobook, because I felt like I could have enjoyed it more, but I did enjoy it. The second half was very easy to resonate with and to follow everything that was happening via audiobook. So yeah, I was really happy that by this, you know, second part, when Eppie becomes a part of the story, I was really able to really enjoy that, and I gave this 4 stars. So I don't know, would it get 5 stars? It's a very short book. It wouldn't be hard for me to reread at some point. And then I have another comment from Megan Hannett. If you've watched this channel now, if you've been following me for the past couple months, the name Megan Hannett will sound very familiar to you, because she is the other host of the Louisa May 2020 reading project that we are doing. Megan said, I just finished Silas Marner, and I absolutely loved his relationship with Eppie. It was the making of him, and it warmed my heart to see him blossom as a father. And I've got to say, I took a little too much satisfaction in the death of Dunsey. I really loved how Megan said it was the making of him, and it really was. It was kind of this role that he never knew he was meant to fill. And I don't know that he was really going out of his way to fill it, because you know, it's so ironic. It's just so ironic that he's framed for this crime of stealing. So Nancy decides she no longer wants to be engaged to him. She does not want to be associated with that. And she gets with Godfrey. Now, what surprised me in Nancy's character then, if she decided to break off that engagement, but then she claims like she wanted to know Eppie, why didn't Godfrey tell her at the time? But is that really consistent with your character? If you broke off your engagement because someone was accused of stealing and they weren't, nobody had witnessed it. You know, this is all people putting what they think is the evidence together to accuse him. So they don't know for sure that he did it. Why would I be sure that you would have then stayed engaged to Godfrey if he has this, you know, this instance where he's engaged to you, he's married to someone else that he's not telling people about? I don't know if I believe Nancy 100% that she actually would have stayed with Godfrey. And yes, the death of Dunsey, I agree. I took a little too much satisfaction too. It was like such a like fitting, like, all right, this is what you want to do. You want to take what isn't yours. Not a nice way to go. Yes. So thank you, Christy and Megan, for leaving comments. It was really nice to, as I was reading, thinking about all of you lovely people who were reading along with me. If you did not get a chance to leave a comment before this review video went up, don't hesitate to leave your thoughts down below, because I would love to see what other people had to think, had to say. So yes, thank you for watching, and I'm really looking forward to carrying on in the next upcoming year with more read-alongs, Most Victorian. I did decide for the next one, you will have seen the announcement video, or the poll that I put up, that I think not everyone loves to consume Victorian novels really quickly, especially if we're doing a longer one. So for the third one that I'm hosting, it will be running over February and March. So I hope that suits people, maybe having a longer time, you don't feel quite as rushed. And I will leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and thank you for participating in reading Silas Marner. It's really nice, you know, to have more George Eliot that I can say I've read. I will be back for another video soon, and have a lovely day. Bye.